to talk to you today a little bit about some of the experiences I've had with IKEA furniture. I'll first and foremost start out by saying I love IKEA. I think they make great stuff. I've bought 4 or 5 pieces of furniture there that I've been pretty pleased with, use just about on a daily basis. But there are a few things that I wanted to share with you to help you learn from some of my mistakes and to help you understand a little bit about the methodology of IKEA and how they work. I'll start out by talking a little bit about the Billy Bookcase. I've had this bookcase for the full height Billy for about 4 or 5 years and been pretty happy with it. Throughout that time, I've had to disassemble this bookcase probably 3, 4, 5 times. And in doing that, I have damaged it a little bit just because of the difficulties of taking off the back panel. What I'm doing now is I'm actually trying to install that back panel with screws instead of the nails. If you read the IKEA instructions, it actually specifies 18 nails to go into that back panel. And so when it comes time to disassemble that, if you're having to disassemble it like me, maybe a smaller screw with a pilot hole would be a better way to do that. A lot of what I'm actually going to be discussing today has more to do with the disassembling and reassembling of some of this furniture. Like I said, it's great stuff, but you have to go into it a little bit knowing what you're doing. One of the things I've found is that the IKEA is kind of known for their user manuals that have this comic book like character assembling furniture, holding up a screw, telling you not to do things. But there is a little bit more to it than that, and so I would like to try to help you fill that gap. So we talked a little bit about the Billy, the challenges of disassembling it, how you get these 18 nails out without destroying the back cover. But one of the more interesting things I've found in having to disassemble and reassemble my Besta TV console, this is the Besta, the B-E-S-T-A, is there are doors you can get with this, and they have hinges on them, and each one of these hinges has 4 screws on it. So if you're getting the basic 3 module Besta, that's 12 screws. If you're getting any kind of side attachments like I did, you could be looking at 12, 16, 20 screws. And there's plenty of documentation on this online, but I want to talk a little bit today about the PosiDrive screw. And while there are websites that address this, there are now several videos, more than several, that talk about this. I'm still pretty surprised by how so many people don't seem to know that there's a difference between a Phillips screw head and a PosiDrive screw head. Now, everyone has seen the classic Phillips screwdriver. Everyone's dad has 10 of these. A lot of people don't realize is that that's a slightly different screw head than the PosiDrive, and the reason is that the PosiDrive is actually a slightly wider screw head. Each one of these little arms that sticks off from the center of the plus is slightly wider on the PosiDrive than the Phillips. And so what this means is that you can get away with using a Phillips on these PosiDrive screws, but after several times of assembling, disassembling, you're going to wind up destroying that screw one way or another. And not only that, but if you're having to put this stuff together that has doors and drawers and you really need to get this perfectly fitted up, you're going to want to start out with that PosiDrive screw. And really, if you buy almost anything from IKEA that has a screw in it, it's going to be a PosiDrive. So that's P-O-Z-I-D-R-I-V. A lot of times they abbreviate it to PZ2. You can, if you're lucky, you can usually pick these up in most big box hardware stores, these PZ bits, but there is a subtle difference between the Phillips and the PosiDrive. So the other thing about that TV console is that the doors on it, they can be adjusted, and if you take your time and you do this correctly, you'll get those doors leveled out perfectly. You'll get them at just the right height, but you have to go in with a little bit of patience, and it's not always as simple as the instructions make it seem. Let's talk a little bit about the Stocksund, Stocksund sofa. Um, I've been pretty happy with this. We have one. I like it a lot. What I have noticed, I think the price has gone up a little bit on it. Um, it was a bit more reasonable when I purchased it, but price aside, there are a few things about that Stocksund that uh, I have learned, and they are just simply not explained very well by IKEA in their instructions. First and foremost, it took me a couple times of taking this apart and putting it back together to realize that um, the cushions on the bottom, the ones that you sit on, do have an upside and a right side up and a downside. And what I've noticed, again, after taking this apart and moving a couple times, is that there's a slightly softer, fluffier side of that cushion, and that should be on the top. Um, After having put it together with that fluffier side on the bottom, I think I noticed the cushions were kind of shifting around. I figured, well, this isn't any kind of real fancy sofa, but it is a little disappointing. Well, this time I tried flipping them so that fluffier part was on the top, and it seems like those cushions stay in place a little better. Nowhere in the instructions is this mentioned, so you might think, well, this stuff is just cheap. IKEA makes cheap stuff. Not necessarily. You just have to, you kind of have to figure it out yourself. A lot of IKEA's for their couches, chairs, they have removable covers, and I'd assume that it's probably the same with a lot of these different models. They unzip, they have Velcro that lines up the cover with the frame of the couch. It's a pretty good design, and it's machine washable. One of the things about that you might not realize is that those covers, at least the ones with the Stocksund, I presume many other models, they're not intended to be machine dried. So you're gonna take that off. You're gonna put it in your washing machine, thinking, oh, I can dry this. You might happen to notice on the label that it says don't dry this, like I did, and then you're realizing as it's in the washing machine, I have to figure out where I'm going to hang this up. If you're living in an apartment or somewhere without a lot of space or dedicated clothesline, you should make sure you have a way to do that. A lot of times the fabric is heavier, a little more substantial, and what you'll notice is that it can take 30 hours or more to dry. So you're going to need space, and you're going to need time, and you're going to need space that you can dedicate for that period of time. On the subject of the Stocksund, let's see, we talked about the cushion orientation, the drying the cover. There's a long strip of Velcro attached to the frame that cover attaches to, and that had actually, it's stapled onto a piece of, probably it feels like it might be 1/4-inch masonite, and that, whatever material that is, I don't know if it's masonite or some kind of OSB or MDF or something, the staples won't necessarily stay in there. There's just not enough meat to hold. So I found that I was actually adding staples after a few years of owning this couch, and it seems to be holding those just fine. So you might want to think about that as well. I just used a medium to light grade Stanley staple gun, no big deal. Just put in probably an extra 20 staples in there, and it seems to be holding up just fine. We talked about the Besta, the bookcase, the sofa. One of the other things in doing this I've learned is that it's a heck of a lot easier to put this stuff together if you're over the age of 20 or 30 with sawhorses. That way you can get it up off the floor and just take your time, get it put together at a comfortable height. So that really helped me a lot, just made the whole process a little easier. So that's all I have. Good luck with IKEA. Like them a lot. Just take your time, be a little patient, realize that there are little subtle things that they don't necessarily explain very well. And have a great day.